Darren used to make me feel like the center of his world. It wasn't always cold breakfasts and colder silences. There was a time he'd hold my hand just to feel my fingers move. But now, our mornings were quiet by obligation, not comfort. He scrolled through emails while sipping coffee. I stopped trying to speak before noon. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was a statement that we'd been married 5 years. The last two have felt like I was married to his ambition, not him. He worked late, even when he was home. The blue light of his laptop replaced eye contact. I tried to ask how his day went, but I always got one-word answers. I stopped asking. When his younger brother Eli showed up, I didn't expect anything to shift. Darren said he needed a place to crash after his breakup. I agreed without hesitation, not out of kindness, but because I thought maybe having someone else in the house might ease the weight of the silence. At least someone would speak at dinner. Eli was quiet the first few days, polite and oddly helpful. He made coffee for everyone without being asked. He offered to walk Baxter, even though the dog was technically Darren's. Darren hadn't taken him out in weeks. The leash stayed in the same spot and used until Eli picked it up. I noticed but said nothing. One evening, I made dinner for 3. Darren barely looked up. Eli thanked me twice. It was such a small thing, but it stuck. Maybe because I hadn't heard appreciation in so long. I watched as he scraped his plate clean, not because the food was great, but because he noticed effort. Darren barely touched his. Baxter started following me around more. Maybe because I was the only one left who fed him, or maybe because even dogs sense loneliness. He curled up beside me when I worked, pressed his head into my leg like he understood more than he should. I found myself talking to him out loud. It felt less pathetic than talking to a wall. The worst part was realizing how long it had been since I'd been touched gently, without distraction or haste. Darren's hugs had turned into sidearm pats, kisses into obligations. I miss being looked at, not in passing, but really looked at, like I mattered. I told myself it was just a phase. Every couple has rough patches, but the patch was stretching into years. Eli started helping with little things, taking out the trash, replacing a light bulb I had asked Darren about for weeks. I watched from the hallway as he stood on the step stool, muttering to himself, focused on something so simple. It hit me harder than I expected. He noticed things, that's all it was. Not attraction, not intention, just attention. I hadn't had it in so long. I mistook it for something else. Late at night, I'd hear Darren on the phone. Conference calls, he said. Always conference calls. Sometimes I wondered if there was another woman. Then I hated myself for thinking it. Then I hated him for making me wonder. I began avoiding our bedroom. I'd stay up late on the couch, pretend to fall asleep watching something, anything to delay sharing a bed with someone who felt like a stranger. I missed our old bed, the old laughter, the random conversations before sleep. Now it was silence, then snores. I wondered if he noticed. If he cared point one morning, Eli made me coffee. Said I looked tired. I smiled, said thanks. Darren came in, grabbed his mug, and walked out without a word. I stood there, mug in hand, not moving. I wasn't shocked anymore, just tired of waiting for something to shift. I didn't want drama. I didn't want trouble. I just wanted to be seen, noticed, heard. And I didn't remember the last time Darren did any of that. Baxter looked up at me, his tail thumping against the floor. At least someone was happy I was there. Eli said he was thinking of getting a place soon. I nodded, pretended it didn't sting. His presence had become a strange kind of mirror. Not of what I wanted, but what I was missing. I didn't want him to stay. I didn't want him to go. I just wanted clarity, and I didn't know where to find it. Sometimes when I stood in the kitchen, I imagined Darren walking in, putting his arms around me from behind, just like he used to, whispering something soft. But those moments only existed in my memory now. They become ghosts I visited to remind myself I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't asking for much. I just wanted someone to care like I did. And that want, that simple want, was beginning to feel like the most dangerous thing of all. Eli wasn't supposed to matter. He was just Darren's brother, a temporary guest with his own heartbreak and baggage. But in the silence Darren left behind, Eli's presence began to echo louder. It started with short conversations in passing, whether work, random things, but gradually those talks stretched longer. Not forced, just natural. He listened, actually listened, without checking his phone mid-sentence. I forgot what that felt like. One night, Darren was away on another trip. Eli and I ended up in the kitchen at the same time. I was making tea. He asked if I wanted company, and I nodded before I could think. We sat there, sipping in quiet, until he said something funny about Baxter's snoring. I laughed, really laughed. I couldn't remember the last time I did that he told me about his ex. How the relationship had slowly died from a lack of care, like watching a plant dry out while pretending it was still alive. The words hit too close. I said nothing, but I think he saw the understanding in my eyes. He didn't push. That's what stood out. He never pushed. The next day, he surprised me with a small gesture. My favorite pastry from a local shop. He said it was nothing. I said thank you, but it wasn't nothing. Not when you've gone so long without being considered. Darren left early for his 3-day conference. He barely said goodbye. His suitcase clicked shut and the door followed behind it. I stood still for a while, not because I missed him, but because I didn't feel anything at all. That should have scared me. Instead, I went about my day like usual, numb but functioning. Later that afternoon, Baxter threw up. I panicked. Eli helped immediately. No hesitation, no complaints. We cleaned it together, both crouched on the floor with towels and water. When we were done, I sat down drained. He handed me a glass of wine without a word. I took it grateful that we talked. At first about Baxter, then about nothing, then somehow about everything. My voice cracked when I said I felt invisible. He didn't interrupt, didn't correct me, didn't offer empty comfort. He just sat there and let me speak, which felt like the most intimate thing anyone had done for me in years that I asked him why he never settled. He said he wanted love that didn't feel like a task. I asked if he thought that even existed. He looked at me for a long time before saying, I think it can, but both people have to show up. There was a silence that didn't feel empty. It was full of everything I'd been holding in. My chest was tight. I wanted to breathe, but couldn't. Then I leaned forward, not because I planned it, not because I thought it through, but because something in me gave way. Our lips touched, and I waited for guilt, for disgust, for regret. None came. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. There was no rush, no frenzy, just something slow and devastating. I remember the weight of it, not the physical part, but the emotional collapse that followed. After we didn't speak, I couldn't even look at him. I wrapped myself in silence. He left the room. I lay there with Baxter next to me, his breathing steady while mine stuttered under the weight of what I'd done. The house felt wrong, like it had witnessed something it couldn't unsee. Every object felt sharper, louder. I wanted to cry, but couldn't. I wanted to rewind, but there was no tape, no button, no chance. The line had been crossed and burned behind me that I waited for the crash of conscience. It didn't come that night, only a sick stillness. I slept for maybe 2 hours, waking up to the sound of birds and shame. I walked into the kitchen. Eli wasn't there. I felt both relieved and abandoned. Darren texted in the morning. Just a photo of his hotel view and the words "crazy day ahead." I stared at it, then turned off my phone. I couldn't fake normal, not even through a screen that I fed Baxter in silence. My hand shook. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't in love. I wasn't even confused. I was just wrecked by the knowledge that I had finally broken something beyond repair. When Darren came back, nothing looked different. The house hadn't changed, but I had, and he didn't notice. He kissed my cheek and asked if there was coffee. I made it without a word. Eli stayed out of sight most of the day. We both knew space was necessary, but space didn't make the weight lighter that I try to move through routine. But routine now felt like acting. Every gesture with Darren felt like a lie. His laugh at his own joke made me flinch. His touch made me stiffen. I thought I'd be better at pretending. I wasn't. Eli said he was looking at apartments. I nodded. My throat tightened. It was the right thing. Probably the only thing. Still, it felt like another goodbye. I didn't get to grieve properly. I avoided being alone with him. Not because I didn't want to be, because I didn't trust myself. Every night, I lay beside Darren and stared at the ceiling. His back turned, his breathing steady, unaware of the storm inside me. I wonder what would happen if I told him. Would he rage? Would he cry? Or would he just blink and ask why I do something so stupid? I wasn't sure which would hurt more, his pain or his indifference. I watched Eli move around the house like a ghost. His eyes avoided mine. We became strangers again, just like that. No